All right, guys, welcome back to the Netwrk podcast. I'm Angela Montero.
What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Sadiq. What's going on, peoples?
Today we have a very special guest, Representative Enrique Sanchez from District 9.
Yes.
Over a few of the episodes, we've definitely touched on politics,
Yeah.
Housing policies,
You know how
what's
much
going on
Angela
in
hates
housing.
politicians.
I don't hate politicians. It's a sensitive topic.
Extremely sensitive
It's a
topic.
sensitive topic, and then it gets the people going. It gets me a little riled up. I'm not gonna lie.
Exactly.
But I'll let you do a little intro. Let us know how you got into politics, because you are probably one of the younger representatives. No?
There's I think one or two more of my colleagues are a bit younger than mine, a year or 2 years younger. But yeah, thank you so much for having us tonight or today.
Welcome.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about policies, the issues happening right now in our communities in Rhode Island, and to introduce myself to the community. So I've been a state representative since the beginning of 2022. Was elected, at the beginning of 2023. I was elected in November of 2022. And we've just been working nonstop since last year, introducing legislation at the state house, getting involved in municipal government level, government as well, affairs, and just working hard to address the issues that our communities are facing all across the state of Rhode Island. And thank you again for having me today.
Nice.
Definitely appreciate it. I think one of the things that, like Angela already mentioned, one of the key discussions that we're having, and a major discussion and issue that's going on across the U.S. Obviously, we're from Rhode Island, so we a lot of these discussions heavy within the community when it comes to housing. I see what I obviously we follow each other on Instagram. I see a lot of the things that you post is regarding the housing crisis. While you are Rhode Island State Representative, so what motivated you actually to run in office, and what challenges are you facing along the way as well as a representative in the state?
Yeah, so I've always been into like history, government, politics. I grew up watching military movies, government movies, reading about biographies about different leaders, politicians, government officials, civilizations. I was, a big reader growing up and educating myself. And throughout the last decade, I've gotten myself more involved in people's campaigns, volunteering for their political campaigns, or organizing and mobilizing around different issues happening across the city of Providence and across the state of Rhode Island. Different issues that have impacted our communities. And I've thrown myself out there just to get myself out there, to be involved, to educate myself, to be aware of the issues and trying to come up with solutions. And I ran a campaign 2 years ago, a grassroots campaign, door knocking, making phone calls, talking to people directly in House District 9. The House District 9 includes the communities of the Upper South Side of Providence, the West End, Olneyville, Silver Lake, Hartford Park, and parts of like the Wigan Village, central part of Providence. And, it was a lot of face-to-face interactions, listening to people, hearing their concerns, hearing about their issues, talking to them about policies, about housing, education, healthcare, infrastructure, healthcare, taxes, and so on. People like to talk about the issues and hear about what solutions we have at state government and city government to address these issues. And since I've been elected, it's been difficult. I'll say this. I'll say that for sure. It's been a lot of problems due to inflation. The rising cost of everything, not just housing, but electricity, utilities, to food, clothing, gas, car insurance, health insurance, and so on. And so a lot of my legislation and policies that I've been pushing forth have been centered around the economic impacts that is affecting people, and I've kind of prioritized that more over everything else. And so it's been problems with barriers with some of my colleagues who don't believe in the same issues that we have to address, that they prioritize other issues. Also, being one of the youngest and more newer members of the House of Legislation, you're seen as a rookie, you're seen as someone who's still trying to who's new into the political field, right? But unfortunately, you know, sometimes people don't understand that it's not based on like personal relationships. It shouldn't be based on personal relationships, on favors, on like, you know, what you're doing for me or what am I doing back for you. It shouldn't be based on that. It should be based on the issues that are impacting the majority of people as communities, you know, and that's why I always talk about the issues and the policies, and I emphasize that.
I think one of the things. So you represent District 9.
Yep.
Or your representative for District 9, which covers the areas which is highly dense of our people, right?
Right.
People of color, and you're a person of color. You're
Latino or Mexican.
Mexican.
Yep.
Interesting. All right. So I think my question is, right? You're coming into this field as a politician, right? And I think this is one of the issues that Angela has, you know, and I think a lot of people in our community has, right? Is, all right, why is it like when it comes to politicians and the agendas that they're trying to put forth, right? You talk a lot, not you specifically, sorry about that. A lot of politicians talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk, right? And I think that causes a lot of frustration within our community. We could talk about housing crisis on all this, but when will delivery occur? Or how would delivery occur? And why should people in our community believe in you as well?
Yeah. So part of there's a few things that we need to clear the matters for, right? So policy and addressing the issues doesn't just stem from one person decision making. It stems from a coalition or a group of politicians making policy changes and initiatives. And it's also important to indicate the differences between who works at state government and who works at city government. Our communities need to understand that they elect state representatives, state senators, and a governor's branch, 3 bodies of government at state government. At city government, you have a mayor's office who works directly with the mayor, and then you have a city council. There's like, I think, 14, 15 city councilors who belong to the city government, but they have different roles. There's a reason why there's checks and balances between the city council and the mayor's office, and the same thing with the state representatives and senators and the governor's office. We pass laws, we pass ordinances, but they have to be signed by the governor or they be signed by the mayor. So each branch of government, whether it's state and city government, has different roles. Stuff with like sidewalk repairs, stuff with like removing trees, branches, ordinances, that's all city governments. Stuff with like car insurance, dealing with health insurance policies, addressing housing crisis at the state house level. So I personally I tell people I don't make promises. I'm not here to say things are going to change from one day to the other, but I'm going to be here to respond to your messages, to your phone calls, to your needs, and I'm going to try my best at my capacity. And a lot of politicians make the mistake of making promises, of taking money from people, whether it's a donor, whether it's a donor, whether it's a special interest group, whether it's whatever, right? A business owner or a regular resident, whatever. They take money and they make a promise that they're going to fix something, whatever, and that's when the cycle of lack of trust and confidence, corruption, you know, all of that. There's nothing, you know, so one thing that we have to make clear too is that here in Rhode Island, state reps, senators, city councilors, we're not full-time employees. We're part-time employees. So city councilors only make like $22,000 to $23,000 a year.
Can't live on that.
That's part-time. So that's why a lot of them have other full-time jobs or have another couple sources of incomes. As state reps and senators, we only make $17,000 and $18,000 a year.
Wow.
We get benefits, we get health benefits, which is a plus, definitely, you know. But I have to have other sources of income. I have other jobs too, and other senators and representatives too. The only people who work full-time are like the governor, the mayor, the secretary of state, the treasurer, higher positions of power, and executive directors and directors of state agencies and state groups and other municipal level government agencies as well. So, you know, it's a matter of time and commitment as well, being a legislator and being a city councilor, because you have to be responsible for your constituents. You represent thousands of constituents, but you also have to look out for your personal livelihood as well, your ways of making money as well, and surviving, right, living. So um, that's why it's important to make these clear indications of whose role, what we do, and what's our task to do. And yeah, it's just common sense sometimes that politicians just don't keep up with their promises, or don't keep up with uh, their tasks that they're about to complete. So
But you personally, you're still in your district. You're obviously still doing, I can see online, you still do a lot of community outreach. You're still, you know, you're still working the
yeah,
streets and
Still
doing
has
what you
that
got to
boots on
do.
the
Yeah,
ground.
yeah,
yes.
I try my best. So we, as legislators at the state house, we work from like January till June. That's another problem. We should be working from January until December, all year round. But that's how the legislation is set up in Rhode Island. We only work 6 months out of the whole year. I want to make sure that we push to change that, but that wouldn't benefit, or that would break other people's schedules or agendas. You know, other colleagues who are lawyers, property managers, have other jobs, other careers, whatever, right? But a functioning government, state government, should be operating all year round, passing legislation, policies, not just 6 months and take 6 months off and then come back in January. And yeah, I mean, I have a campaign re-election this season, so I have to continue being out there. I'm gonna continue working, and not just during campaign season, but during election season, but also all year round, and just checking in with constituents and residents and voters in my district.
What specific plans do you, when it comes to housing will you address, right?
Mhm.
How would you ensure that new housing developments meet the needs of low and middle income residents? Because I've noticed that's been like a major focal point for you.
Yeah. So a few things, a few factors of why we're dealing what we're dealing with now, the housing crisis. First of all, Rhode Island was ranked dead last in housing production a couple years ago. In a report, I think a John Hopkins report came out, or some report from Massachusetts came out. We ranked 50th in housing production, and that's a problem.
That is a
One.
problem.
Two is our priorities. Yeah, our priorities weren't focused around the need to build housing. Two is inflation. We're dealing with a supply issue. It's a global issue, national issue. It falls on Rhode Island. Inflation costs have gone up drastically. Have due to the pandemic as well. We've been feeling and seeing the economic consequences, repercussions of what we're dealing with now. Three, there's a lot of NIMBYism, a not my backyard mentality, not just in Providence, but across the state of Rhode Island. We're pushing for new construction of housing production, whether it's low income, affordable, market rates, luxury. I personally would like to see more mixed housing, low income, affordable housing. But I know developers out there, it's a business that is for profit, right? So I understand, okay, well, we're gonna build housing, but if we're gonna build housing to keep it affordable, to keep it, affordable for our communities who are not making over $70,000, $80,000 a year, we need to make sure that we are doing our part in state government to push in like public subsidies for folks to qualify for, tax credits. Right now, we're trying to build a lot of like duplexes, a lot of modern density housing. We're trying to change the zoning with different municipalities and towns, and we're having issues right now because in like towns like Narragansett, South Kingston, North Kingston, and so on, our state government is overdoing like the zoning. So if a developer wants to build a duplex or affordable housing in their community, or mixed housing, we were pushing to make sure that it was at least 25 to 35% of affordable housing. But the municipalities and towns, their city councils, are trying to overdo it, or pushing back against our decision making as state reps and senators, and making sure that it's only like 15-20% max affordable housing. Why? Because they think that poor black, brown, white people are going to be living in those affordable housing, and they don't want to see that. That's why
Are they lying though? Is that and I'm not going against the grain, right?
Right.
But and I guess from a thought perspective, right? is there truth to the merit? Is there truth to what they're saying?
Well, they're going based off what the
Like
demographics.
historically.
And I think they're also going. People are led by fear. It's being led by fear. A lot of people, especially those that are not as liberal when it comes to politics, that's really what it comes down to. But I mean, historically speaking, if you pull statistics, putting funds into lower and affordable housing, it reduces crime, it reduces all the things. So there is a really good, I would say, trickle up effect.
Yep.
But the problem is that there's still very close-minded people that just see it as a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like you say affordable housing, and they think that means that there's going to be a trap house
Exactly.
on their block in
Exactly.
Narragansett, when it's not the truth. I mean, you see some of the newer construction that has been built in Central Falls through PCFD and other programs similar to that. And I mean, I've met some of the families, I've been to the neighborhoods, I've walked the properties, and they're great properties. And they're great people that are benefiting from them.
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely right. We want to see affordable housing being built everywhere. I'm all for housing production. Let's keep building it, keep building it. But I'm also conscious of who can afford, whether it's luxury housing, market rate housing, affordable housing, low income housing, public housing, whatever. I'm just conscious of, I want to be conscious and be compassionate and be thoughtful about our communities, everyone being able to afford where they live.
So let me ask you this: while you're having these conversations with colleagues, whether statewide in your, next door to your district, or even some colleagues nationally, is the conversation also including, let's just say, like a normal, like Sadiq and I both invest, but we're normal. We're not like, we're not buying hundreds of properties or whatever, we're just, a couple. Sometimes we're like going all in on an investment, and for a few months it's like ramen. What conversations are had about like that kind of like smaller group of investors? Because I feel like online I see a lot of this like kind of investor talk, almost like a boogeyman, right? Like, oh, developers, investors, they all kind of get lumped into this kind of boogeyman sort of category. What conversations are happening about the not so boogeyman-ish versions of that?
Yeah, so it's important to keep in mind that there was a question on your agenda that I know about the Watergate development.
Yes.
That I can touch base with that as well. So I personally know that not all developers and investors are grouped into the same group of people, right? And you could tell definitely by the amount of outreach and public engagement that we deal with at the State House when we're putting in legislation that either is in favor of the landlord or in favor of the tenant. You have different groups coming out to mobilize and public speaking testimony, written testimony, and so on. I'm all for building wealth and pushing for investing. I'm all for our communities also breaking into that generational lump that has been mostly developing and investing, has development and developers, investors, that area of career work has been dominated by mostly older white men, right? But I love to see our communities, Black and brown communities, and whether it's millennials or Gen Z folks or younger folks, whatever, going into those fields and careers. I'm all for it, and I automatically assume and think that, okay, well, once we get into that, we break into that field as well, we'll have consideration for our communities who are lower class, working class, aren't involved in that career, but we're part of our same communities. Right now, or last legislative session, we put a bill in that would grant tax credits. Couple things. Grant tax credits from the state government or federal government funding. So something called LIHTC. I don't know if you guys have heard about those the low income housing tax credits. So these tax credits, if we meet a certain requirement as state government, we get that same funding match from the federal government. So for a developer and investor who chases those light tax credits, you get money back from the state government for it's federal dollars, so that you can build housing, a certain amount of percentage of housing, affordable housing units, part of the social, whether whatever development you're pushing for, you get a certain amount of federal dollars, low income tax credit dollars, so that you can match that with your personal investing money, and you get money from the federal government, state government.
That's pretty cool.
That yeah,
Okay.
so we've been pushing for that. We haven't been using that much of that funding from the Gina Raimondo administration to now the Governor McKee administration, but we're bringing light to that. We also put in a bill and out there that would grant tax credits to landlords and homeowners who kept their rents affordable, so that we don't have to talk about rent control, rent stabilization. So we're pushing for that. We're dealing with a problem right now with our budget. I personally was disappointed in the amount of housing money that we pushed in the budget. We passed the $13.9 billion budget, and we only invested like I don't know, like $150 million.
And that towards housing.
Towards housing, yes. Like we should have pushed like Massachusetts did. They almost did a billion. Well, they have a bigger budget, but they almost pushed towards $1 billion in housing.
Massachusetts building left and right. They are
Now they are. Yeah, now they are, because we're dealing with the repercussions.
Do you think some of that has to do with some of the like short staff that we have in some of those districts, or like the ability? I know, like during COVID, for instance, one inspector, when there were new constructions, like I had houses that I was, I represented the buyer, and it'd be like 2 weeks before you can get an inspector out, because we're working with one. Are some of the challenges because of the lack of staff meant to support the initiatives? That like you have these like amazing initiatives to push forward, but do you have the actual people to push forth?
Yeah, so this is where the clear indications of state government operating or city government operating, depending where you're investing and where you're pushing for development, you're dealing with that town and city directly. So if you're pushing for Central Falls or housing, or you're trying to push for development in South Kingston, North Kingston, you're dealing directly with the municipality.
Right.
So the state's not involved.
And some aspects.
Gotcha.
Whether it's granting for funding, whether it's getting a specific state inspection, but most of the time you're dealing with the municipalities. Yes, the planning and zoning department, the inspector, the sewage department of that city and town.
Right.
So there's a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of barriers when dealing with individuals from municipalities and towns, whether it's a lack of trust or lack of responsibility, confidence, working relationship, favoritism. Those are issues that we can address at the local level, and only certain stuff, like if you're trying to get funding from the state government to build to match your development, you're going to deal with Rhode Island Housing, which is like our third party organization group that we deal with giving the funding to from the state government, and then they distribute it out to developers and investors.
Episode is brought to you by CalTIF Investments and Consultants. If you're looking for investments for new construction, home, or renovation project, they definitely can provide that service. If you're looking to rent or lease a property, CalTIF Investment is the way to go. If you're watching this from our Instagram page, definitely their handle will be within the body of the post. If you're watching the full episode on YouTube, definitely send me a message and I'll definitely connect you. It's called the Netwrk for a reason.
No.
All right. One of the things that that was problematic for you, I think I think that's probably a better word to say, is the voluntary payments of private institutions. Brown University and a bunch of these other private institutions only spend $170 million in payments towards the city and all this other stuff. So my take, right? If I was an entrepreneur, obviously I am an entrepreneur, but I'm talking about at a certain level, right? Where I'm employing so many people. I'm bringing in jobs, you know, uh, helping people be able to earn income to create a living for their family. Why wouldn't I want to take advantage of any form of benefit that the city's going to give me, right? For instance, when Jeff Bezos paid zero taxes that one year, right? He's, people like that providing thousands and thousands of jobs for the economy. Why wouldn't they? Why aren't you okay with that? What's problematic?
Right. So, um, um, right now we are living in a time when I personally believe, and many of like my constituents, residents, and voters, when I bring up this conversation, they agree. You know, and that's in House District 9. I can't speak for the whole city. I can't speak for the whole state, right? But most of the people believe that everyone should be paying their fair share of taxes, especially in this economy. Um, yeah, we could be thankful for an employer like Jeff Bezos, Amazon, or Lifespan, Care New England, who provide jobs and so on. But like I also keep in mind and into consideration the workers, their benefits, their pay, like how much are they earning. Right now, there's huge issues at the hospitals, women and infants, Rhode Island Hospital with staff shortages, with workers not getting paid enough, workers being paid, working long hours, and dealing with a lot of the mental health issues. There's a lot of problems out there with homelessness, people dealing with violence, domestic violence, people getting aggressive. You know, there's stories out there in the news that come out. And I've spoken personally to workers and staffers and healthcare workers and nurses and so on about their inadequate working conditions. Um, 40% of commercial property is owned by a lot of these like private institutions and hospital groups. Providence College, RISD, Johnson and Wales, Brown University, Lifespan, um, and now they merged, right? So out of that 40%, they've only been paying like, or only 20 no out of that 40%, 28% of that commercial property is tax exempt. So as they're buying property, commercial property across the city, um, they're not having to pay taxes. Now they're protected by federal law that indicates that they don't have to pay the taxes. We're trying to overdo that in the state government to make sure that they pay their fair share of taxes, at least on commercial property. If they're buying up commercial property, they should be paying taxes. Like we can have that we can have that debate, right, about, well, if they're providing jobs and they're and investing, providing and creating thousands of jobs, they should get some breaks, right? But what about for regular taxpayers in Providence, residential owners, homeowners? Right now, last year I opposed taxes going up for homeowners and landlords, like completely, like, but they were raised due to like the mayor's decision and some of the city councilors there as well. This year we negotiated and taxes will not go up on property owners and resident owners. Excuse me, yeah, resident owners, and then also property owners with 6 or more commercial property dwelling units. Um, Taxes will stay below, but that was the problem. Like, we're talking about employers and individuals who provide jobs and invest in our economy. But what about for Providence residents who are also taxpayers and invest in our intercommunities and have been paying taxes for decades? So it's like it has to be a balance, in my opinion, right? Just to make sure that the economy is benefiting everyone.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, that'd be like me every day being like, I'm gonna punch you in the face, but here's some money, or here's a job. Right, like exploitation is exploitation regardless of how it's painted.
Yeah,
I think that's really what it comes down to. My issue with politics is that people get it's too personal.
yeah,
So you say one thing and somebody thinks you're talking directly to their grandmother,
yeah,
like, and they get so offended. But also within like talking about politics, it almost seems like it's just about being right. A lot of people, it's about being right, not necessarily with doing what's best for the greater good. So that's why you get a lot of this divisiveness, and you get like one side, because two things can be true at the same time. It's just like that last topic.
Yeah.
Like a corporation, for me personally, can pay their fair share of taxes with, and what does that mean? Like, oh, they might not be able to buy a new yacht. Like, I don't care. Like, I've said this before. Like, I'm not sad for you that you
Right.
can't get a new yacht, right? Because like I can't. There's a lot of things that I
Yeah, you
can't
can't
do.
fathom it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I think that's just for me personally. That's my main issue. It's people get whiny and bratty and take things way too personally.
Yeah.
What's your beef with Secretary Stephen Pryor?
Yeah. No. So I mean,
y'all belong in the ring together.
no. So I don't know if you guys heard, but he stepped down this week.
Oh.
He's not going to be the director or secretary of housing anymore. He was the and in all respect to him, it's not personal, like you mentioned, right? It's all policy differences. But we did have some differences there with my other colleagues who represent House District 9, the state senator who represents that area, the city council president as well. We had some issues stemming back to the warming shelter at the Cranston Armory last year. A couple years ago when the governor announced it, the Cranston Armory was used as a warming shelter to house our homeless community. Like hundreds of folks were housed there, had a roof over the head because it was a cold winter last year. And just like the lack of communication, the lack of dialogue, not looking like thinking, being thoughtful about our constituents as well, and their issues with a warming temporary shelter that size being in the community. I was personally all for it. Like, yeah, let's make sure everyone has a roof over their head. Let's make sure no one freezes to death in the cold. And so, but they didn't give us enough resources, funding, a lot of like assistance that we needed, and so we had to deal with the repercussions of that. And then also just like our differences on like what type of housing should be built in the city and across the states. He was the executive director or the secretary for Rhode Island Commerce as well, so they would use a lot of that fund. They would be giving a lot of funding from Rhode Island Commerce to big developers, luxury developers, when we could be using that funding for like affordable housing investing, so mixed housing, so for a long time luxury housing and that big development was prioritized when we should have been investing in low income housing, affordable housing, and also mixed housing. But yeah, I mean it was mostly policy differences, not like nothing personal or anything.
So you're happy that he's out of office?
Well, we should have had someone. We should have had someone there who understood like the housing crisis. He comes from a background of development, so he actually did some decent work in New York City when 9/11 happened, reconstruction and pushing for new development and all that. So he has experience, but when it comes to like housing directly, that's some of a lot of the issues that we're stemming from. With
I think people forget Rhode Island, like Providence, we're city.
Yeah.
But I feel like when I follow like national news for what's going on in housing from state to state, I feel like Rhode Island is very unique. It's different. It's not apples to apples. Right. There's some similarities and overlap, but to take a place like New York and try to model Rhode Island after it, even regarding some of like rent control and those kinds of things, it almost it doesn't work. You can learn from them, but you have to completely revamp. You can't take exactly what
model worked for one state
and then bring it to Rhode Island.
Exactly.
We have this uniqueness of being like city but also small town feel.
Yep.
And like I feel like politicians, anyone trying to move the pendulum forward, needs to always keep that in mind. We are not New York. We're not Florida. We're not Texas.
That's actually a really
we're
good
not
point.
any of those things. Like, and you need to.
Yeah. No, you're right.
One of the things that we like to do, we like to play again with a lot of our guests that come onto the platform.
Sure.
It's called a one-word response, and basically the way it works is that we give you five. We say 5 words of either individual or thing,
Yep.
and you utilize one word to basically describe that individual or thing.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm gonna start. All right. Affordable housing crisis.
Urgently. No, this is just priority.
Priority. Oh,
Yeah,
you switched.
priority,
I
yeah.
like that. All right. Brown University.
Inequality.
Wow, that's a good one.
Property taxes.
Essential.
Stephen Pryor.
Mm, policy different. That's what's two words, right? I'm trying to not get personal, right? I'm trying to
It's
get
all right.
policy, um, differences.
And waterfront property development.
Which we didn't talk about, but
Mm, question mark, or can I use the question mark emblem?
Yeah.
Question. Yeah.
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 All right.
I think as you move forward for re-election, right? I think one of the things that people, not only just us, I think the people themselves, as they watch and listen to the information that you were sharing, why should people vote for you or re-elect you back in office?
Yeah. So I always tell people this, whether it's at doors, phone calls, emails, text messages. I always tell my constituents, residents, neighbors, the same thing. I don't look for just votes or support. I am trying to build relationships and trying to build a line of communication with our communities. This is personal to me because the future of our city and our state depend on the decisions that we make in government. And for so many years, there's been a lot of people in office that are in it for themselves or in it for connections, power, money, whatever. And I focus a lot of my time dealing with the issues, the policies, coming up with solutions, whether you agree with them or you don't agree with them. But I'm always happy to find common sense, comprehension, and planning with Republicans, Democrats, Independents, um, um, liberals, progressives, folks on the right, folks in the middle, folks on the left. Like I'm willing and able to listen to everyone's perspective, and I don't take this and I don't take it personal. I always get trash talked on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and all that, but a lot of people see that we're trying our best to work hard. I want to be considered a team player. I don't want to be considered as an individual and making decisions because that's I don't get we don't get things done like that with one person. We get things done with a group of people agreeing on the same issues, building up mobilization and building up consensus around an issue and a policy and coming up with a plan. And I keep it real. I keep it straightforward with people. I don't do the same talking points. I don't have an agenda. I don't pretend to be a robot. I'm very like impolitical correctly. I don't have like a line of things that I say to make my pitch or any of that. I keep it real. I keep it straightforward. I bring up to the attention of what we're dealing with right now, the housing crisis, we need to raise wages, we need to raise salaries, we need to invest into our public education system, we need to fix our schools, we need to fix our infrastructure, we need to make health insurance more affordable, car insurance more affordable. It's getting expensive. Talking all about the issues is what grasps people to make or to pay attention to you and to listen to you. Not talking about yourself, talking about your past, talking about your experience. Like that comes after, that comes later. But right now it's just the issues, policies, and I'm an issue, policy, find solutions person.
Do you think some people have beef with you because, like you're big on social media? I think generationally speaking,
The age,
that
the age.
and it's the fastest way to get information across, right?
Yeah.
You post something, you can reach so many people.
Yeah.
But do you think maybe the reason that some people have a little bit of beef is because they're like strong, just like talking points? So you went over some of them, like you'll say housing crisis, so automatically I feel like you're gonna lose some people that they associate that with you want to penalize developers. Or if you say I don't know, just topics like that. Do you think that's what it is? Like, and do you purposefully do that, or do other politicians purposefully do that? Like, they use certain talking points on their social media to kind of like rile people up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I whether there's beef or personal differences, or excuse me, policy differences, I think a big problem also exists with sometimes there not being dialogue with people. So some people might post something about you on social media or comment on you without knowing you in person. That's why I try my best to get to meet people, like talk to them in person. If we don't agree on policy things, we might agree on a lot of other stuff like sports or personal stuff, backgrounds, your upbringing, and so on. Going out, having drinks, or talking, and just having a conversation. And I'm trying to do more of that. But yeah, I mean, housing crisis. When I mention that, that's on everyone, not just developers, but also politicians, landlords, homeowners, renters, investors, like everyone. We're all at fault for that, and our predecessors are at fault for that too, for not addressing those issues back then. The politicians from the past, the investors from the past, developers from the past, landlords from the past, renters, and so on. People who were dealing with the decision making back then are at fault, But now we're also dealing with this as well, and it's not to gain like attention or anything. Like I'm not benefiting from, and I'm not benefiting. I'm not gaining anything or winning anything when I talk about rent control, rent stabilization, or affordable housing or housing crisis. Like I'm not personally making money or benefiting materialistically wise. What I am doing is I'm just listening to what I'm hearing on the ground from many people, many of my constituents and residents, and bringing it up to light, to the attention about why we need to continue building housing, why we need to continue building affordable housing, and we need to address the housing crisis because everyone is feeling the burns of this housing crisis, whether you're a developer, an investor, realtor, landlord, renter. Like we all have expenses. We all have a lot of money that we're investing into this, and we're paying to this to be able to live, to be able to afford to live.
How should the people contact you if they want to, I guess, become a donor, or if they just want to hear more about your policies and your agenda, that could potentially benefit them, so they could be able to turn around and be like, you know what, this guy he's spitting the right game. Let me vote for him. How should they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to reach to through Instagram, through Twitter, Facebook, Messenger, DM. Email is Sanchez for State Rep 9@gmail.com. My number's on social media as well, 401-753-8114. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Reddit, mostly all the social media platforms. Not TikTok. I haven't had time to get into TikTok. I hear it's a very instrumental tool as well, app, but I just haven't invested my time into it. But yeah, I get whoever calls me, text messages me, DMs me. I answer right away, and I respond back to folks as well.
That's pretty cool. As long as I think before we close out, I think the biggest thing for me is as long as you're being as authentic as possible to people, right? Because right now I think so many people are so woke.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Or they think they woke. People are worried that they're not going to be able to see for who you are, right? They smell the bullshit, you know, and I think that's people's concern. So I guess just like anything else, you know what I mean? If you deliver, and do the things that, I don't want to say do the thing that you say you're going to do, but show the people that you're doing the best you can, and that you're here for them. I think people at the end of the day is going to look at you as someone of an authentic individual, right?
Yeah.
So.
And I think the education piece too. There's a few things that I learned just with some of the things that you said.
Learned some things too.
Because I think a lot of our community, we lack that. I like history and politics because I'm nosy. I am.
Extremely.
I am very nosy. Everybody knows that, and I like history and learning about leaders and things just because it's like professional gossiping, and I love it. But in our communities where we don't necessarily understand how policy is created, where policy is created, who creates certain policies. So I think the educational piece is key in the district that you represent, because you know, you knock on someone's door, they don't like something that goes on in the state, they might think, oh, Enrique did it.
Yeah.
And they have no idea. They have no idea that you had nothing to do with it. Like you're like what you do literally does not touch that particular aspect. But yeah, so I think it's just education. So if I can give anyone advice too, it's just get educated. I think it's so easy now to kind of trace back who your district reps are because of all of our access. You know, we have computers all the time. It's different. So get out there, do your research on your local reps, and vote on the local level. Not just on the presidential elections. Yes.
Vote. So, did you want to say something before we close out?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for having me, and I appreciate the time to discuss some of the policy stuff that we discussed today: the housing, education, taxes, and I always encourage people to get involved locally, whether it's politics or education or meetings happening with the school board or meetings happening with like development. Like throw yourself out there and learn about what's being done to address like these issues. And yeah, I mean, it's just been education is everything and awareness is everything. And picking up a book or reading through your tablet or your phone is always something productive to do, right? And learning about different fields. And I always encourage our communities to do that.
Dope. You guys know what it is. It's your boy Sadiq, you know.
And Angela.
Thank you guys very much. And with our obviously great guest, Enrique Sanchez, thank you very much for coming out to our platform.
Thank you.
And sharing your thoughts and your visions, you know, and your purpose as well. But until next time, catch you guys on the flip side.
Peace.
Peace.